Good afternoon, and welcome back to Transformation Thursdays, where we highlight the people, programs, and partnerships that are driving meaningful change in our communities here in Northeast Louisiana. My name is Katie Terrell, and I'm so excited to be here with you again on today's episode. Today's episode will focus on understanding the population that we are set to serve at our upcoming R.I.S.E Treatment Center, going beyond the numbers to explore the real stories, challenges, and needs behind the statistics. More to come on that topic here in a few minutes. Our mission at Northeast Delta is to serve as a catalyst for individuals with mental health, developmental disabilities, and addictive disorders to help them realize their full human potential by offering quality, excellent care with greater accessibility. Our vision is to build a unified Northeast Louisiana where individuals are thriving and reaching their full human potential. The three tenets that guide our actions are greater access to services, excellent customer service, and quality, competent care. It is Thursday, May 7th, 2026. As a reminder, we are set to cut the ribbon on R.I.S.E Treatment Center in June, so we want to continue to bring you more information about this exciting new facility for Northeast Louisiana. Today, I'm joined by Janice Rogers. She's the Director of Integrated Care at Northeast Delta Human Services Authority to talk more about R.I.S.E and the individuals that it serves. Ms. Rogers brings a wealth of experience and insight into the complex realities of substance use, mental health, and recovery, and how we can better meet people where they are. So let's welcome in Ms. Rogers.
Hello.
Welcome back to Transformation Thursdays. I know that you're used to how this goes, but thank you so much for joining us again. You're really a veteran on this podcast, and we appreciate you being here again.
Not a problem. I enjoy the experience. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Ms. Rogers, just to start us off, can you paint, I know we've talked about this a little bit in prior episodes, but just to remind people, can you paint a picture of the population that R.I.S.E is designed to serve?
Absolutely. And I kind of want to take my time a little bit here because I think that this is where everything really begins. So I want to make sure that I paint a really good, clear picture of the population that we'll be serving at R.I.S.E. Most times when people hear the term substance use disorder, they often picture something that's very one-dimensional, right? They may think about behavior or choices or even the stereotypes that may be involved with someone being abusing, using a substance, or historically what they have been termed are addicts. But what we see is something that's much deeper, much more layered, and much more relating to the human aspect of the individuals that we serve. R.I.S.E Treatment Center is designed to serve pregnant women who are living with substance use disorders. And very often, along with those substance use disorders, they also have co-occurring mental health needs that also need to be addressed. But even those two elements of what they bring to the table does not even fully capture who these women are. It absolutely does not. These women are often carrying years of lived experience. Many of them have experienced trauma in various forms, whether that's childhood trauma, domestic violence, sexual violence, loss, or even chronic instability. Some have grown up in environments where safety was never consistent. In fact, their norm was having struggles as it related to safety. Others have experienced very significant life disruptions even as adults. And when you really sit with their stories and you begin to understand that their substance use is rarely even the starting point. It's often something that develops over time, and it's a way for them to cope with things that they may have experienced. It's a way for them to numb the emotions that's associated with those experiences. Or it's simply a way that they have long learned to survive, honestly speaking. Many of the women that we plan to serve at R.I.S.E are navigating some very real day-to-day challenges, whether that is housing instability, poverty, lack of transportation, unemployment, broken or strained support systems, and they're really just trying to find a way to make ends meet and trying to find a way to make things work for them and their children. Some of them may already be involved in the child welfare system or at some point have come in contact with the child welfare system. And then layered on top of all of that, they are still mothers. Or they're about to become mothers, because as you know, the women that will be bringing into the treatment center will be in their third trimester, expecting some very real things to happen in the coming months as they are admitted into the treatment center. So all of this really adds some different levels of complexities to what the women will be serving at R.I.S E, will be exposed to or bringing with them when they come into the treatment center. Because now there's not only their own health, there's also the well-being of their unborn child, and also the health of any of the children that may come with them to the treatment center. Any woman is able to bring at least 2 children with them, provided that those children are 12 and under. They're able to come with them as well. Oftentimes, these women carry a lot of fear, a lot of guilt and pressure, just pressure of the world, pressure of being a mom, pressure of becoming a new mom, fear of being judged, fear of being reported to DCFS, possibly losing their children, or fear that they've gone too far and there's no way back for them. And yet, despite all of that, there's still something there. These women will be coming with a desire to be something different. Whether initially they have spoken it or not, they just have that desire that's driven them to reach out, to make a call, to even want to be admitted into the treatment center. So when we open the doors of R.I.S E, what I expect to be walking through the doors are women who not only come in with a diagnosis that involves substance use disorders, but they're walking in with a life story. They are walking in with a life story that includes pain and struggle, but also what I see them walking into is potential and strength. Us being able to work with them with the potential that they bring in, the strength of resilience, and helping to move down this path of recovery so that they themselves can become more whole, and so that their families can be able to become more whole as well. We're talking about mothers, we're talking about babies, we're talking about entire family systems. So the impact goes far beyond just the woman that's the intended client. It's everything that's coming with her. But we have the potential to really impact birth outcomes, prenatal health, long-term development of any of the children that we encounter during this program, and just the long-term stability and recovery of mom and also her children.
Well, that was stated very well. Thank you. I think that you did exactly that. You painted a picture that is so much more than just the qualifications that get someone in this facility, right? There's so much that's happened before they ever enter this facility. There will be things that happen after they leave this facility. It's such a continuum of care that I know that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about a little bit later on why integrated care is so important for these populations. Because of some of the things that you said. And yeah, as a new mom myself, I can't imagine going through that at the same time you're trying to navigate all these other systems and the fear that can come with that and what might keep people out of treatment centers like this when really that might be the best place for them. So yes, if we get them in the door, we need to really make use of that experience and that time and really help these women as they come in, but also as they leave. And like we've talked about on previous episodes, but that continuum of care so that when they leave R.I.S E, it's not that they're leaving Northeast Delta Human Services Authority, they're just leaving that particular facility.
That's all. Yes, they still will have access to all of the services that we offer on an outpatient basis, all of the different partners that we are working with to ensure that our whole integrated care model really works. They'll still have access to all of that.
Which is great. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about, why behind R.I.S E. We talked about that on our last episode together. I know that there are a lot of statistics that have become public knowledge through, the Louisiana Department of Health. People might have seen that. what are the key statistics for this population, especially here in Louisiana?
So, statistics are very, very, very important because they help us understand the scale of the issue and also the urgency behind the issue. One of the most critical data points that I've come to learn regarding this particular population is that overdose has been a leading cause of pregnancy associated deaths in the state of Louisiana for years, even dating back to 2018. And even more so with what I've also learned, there is a majority of those have also been deemed treatable or avoidable in some manner. And so we have a lot of missed opportunities to intervene and to be able to provide care, which is, in my opinion, part of what the hope behind establishing R.I.S.E Treatment Center will be able to do. But it also helps to make sure that we not only look at the numbers, but we're able to put faces to those numbers that are being reported, and understanding that behind those numbers that we're looking at and seeing how our state is truly impacted by some of these particular statistics, that we're understanding that as we help the women and their children through this process, we're really helping to change the face of health overall for the state of Louisiana. So I really want to make sure we put names to some of those statistics, but help to improve the outcomes associated with it, to where this isn't continuing to happen. As I said, since 2018, that has been a leading cause of pregnancy. Overdose itself has been a leading cause of pregnancy associated deaths in the state of Louisiana.
And I know that Northeast Louisiana is, even sometimes higher in some of those statistics than the rest of the state. And I know that a lot of that is, some of it might be because we're in such a rural area, and that a lot of the parishes that we serve are rural. So it's a little bit, it's slightly more challenging for people to access care and to put forth that effort to receive care. But I also think that's a great part of R.I.S.E is that it is a residential treatment center. We are going to be accepting, we're going to be prioritizing Northeast Louisiana, but we're going to be accepting clients from all over, because they'll come and they'll be able to get that inpatient treatment and then receive either outpatient services from us or a partner that we connect them to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another thing that I wanted to share too about the statistic element of it is, for our state in particular, one thing to highlight is, as I've spoken about, along with the substance use disorder, there's the mental health component. A lot of the women, about 1 in 5 women, experience depression or another form of a mental health condition during or after pregnancy immediately. So those are some other things that when the women are at R.I.S.E, we'll be able to also assist them with immediately following delivery, making sure that we are really focusing on their mental health, while also still making sure we're working any type of regimen necessary if they're receiving medication assisted treatment or anything of the nature from our prescribers. We'll still be able to really work with them to determine if they're having any type of depressive symptoms or any other mental health conditions that we need to address.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which again, I know we keep building up to this, but that whole integrated care approach is going to be so invaluable for this group. So when people do hear statistics, because I do think they're put out sometimes, I know even we've put some out on our Facebook pages and our Instagram, and they catch attention, right? A lot of times people see a statistic and they're like, wow, I didn't know that. But when people hear statistics about substance use or mental health, what do you think is often misunderstood about that? Because just a number, sometimes as you've been saying, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. So what can be misunderstood about a statistic?
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is that people hear the numbers, but they don't understand the human experience behind those numbers. And what I mean when I say that is, statistics are great to have, but statistics also can create distance. They can make you feel as if this whole notion is more of an abstract issue, rather than something that's involving real people in real communities every day. And because of that, it becomes a default oftentimes to where individuals are more inclined to pass judgment. People may think, oh, if she's pregnant, why wouldn't she just stop? Her being pregnant should be enough to motivate her to seek treatment or motivate her enough to just stop using the substances. But truth be told, addiction does not work that way. Substance use disorder is a chronic, treatable medical condition, and it should be looked at as that. It affects the brain, it affects behavior, and it is often deeply connected to trauma and to mental health. Pregnancy does not simplify the situation for the woman. There's a belief that pregnancy should lead to a behavioral change, but in reality, it can actually cause the woman to have an increase in fear, increase in shame, and could further isolate herself from others, especially those who she really should be seeking care from. A lot of times women will not seek prenatal care because they know that they're using that substance, and they just don't want to be judged, or they do not want to be reported, because they may lose that child, or they may lose any other children that are in their custody. And so because of that, their silence becomes even more dangerous. Um, and so it's really important that they see the need to reach out and seek help, and that it's just not about behavior. It's not about a statistic. It's about the person behind all of that. And so we have to really work to kind of reshape some of the ideas that we have around a statistic, and making sure it's tied to the person, or is tied to the needs of the person. And how do we as a system make things better? And how do we shift in a direction that helps to make things better?
Absolutely. And I know part of our, our plan whenever we are speaking about RISE in the future is going to be telling those stories, is going to be making sure that, someone doesn't just see a statistic and say, well, I don't know if I'm part of that or not. I don't know if I want to be part of that or not. But instead they're hearing someone tell their story that they can relate to, that they're like, maybe this is for me. So absolutely. I totally hear what you're saying about the people behind the statistics. So, and you alluded to this with the first question, but what are some common life circumstances or experiences that can eventually lead individuals to needing inpatient substance use treatment?
I think ultimately my thoughts behind it, it's a series of things, not necessarily a single moment or a point in time where someone just makes a decision to say, I want inpatient treatment. It's a progression. And for many women, it starts with the trauma. It may start with them seeing the needs of their children and different things that may truly help lead them down the path of even wanting to seek treatment. But I think it really is going to involve a series of things that they're going through, that's going to really help lead them down that particular road. My apologies. And it's really going to help make sure that we have an idea of how important it is for them to have stable relationships being implemented, or finding a way or an outlet to be able to communicate different needs, and even their need to be ready to seek treatment, or to reach out and make the phone call about being able to just get information about what RISE Treatment Center is truly about. But I think it's more of a progression in my mind. And over a span of time, the individual just come into a realization that, oh, I think it might be time for me to go ahead and do this. But it's going to be a readiness process. It's going to lead up to a big climax of things where they're going to reach out, and we have to be ready and able to meet them where they are at that point, and help make sure that transition is as smooth as possible, where they truly understand and feel supported to really go along that route. So for any person that may have contact with a woman that's finally at a point where she's saying, I want more information, it's really going to be about that element where you're not being judgmental, where you are providing the resources and providing a particular level of understanding that resonates with that individual, that's going to help further them on the path of recovery, or even choosing to say, yes, I'm ready. I'm going to give it a try. It's worth the try now.
Right. Well, and I also want our listeners to know too that Maybe inpatient treatment isn't the first step for you. Maybe the inpatient treatment isn't the first step for your family member. Maybe outpatient services are the best fit for now, and then maybe it's a transition into that, or to see if that would be a good fit. Recognizing that is why Northeast Delta Human Services Authority is so well positioned for this facility, because of that continuum, and recognizing that, RISE, we don't want RISE necessarily to always be the first, entry point, or definitely don't want it to be the last entry point, the last point of communication with us. So it is a continuum, and we are here to give people more information about all of those services, and RISE just might be a step on that path.
Absolutely. And it's also important to remember that for a lot of the women that we will be working with, it's likely not their very first time of trying to seek help. It's not their first time at being admitted into an inpatient facility. It's not their first time of having tried outpatient services before. But at that point in time, it's how do we best meet their need? Because we know that the struggle has been so real for so long. They may have gone through this cycle several times, but are they at the point now where they have reached a higher level of acceptance and they're going to work through the program? Once they are admitted, we're going to do everything that we can to make sure we're helping them along their recovery journey. Treatment at RISE is voluntary. We're not going to make it like once you're in, you're stuck in here. We hope that the women will continue to make the correct choices towards their journey and becoming more self-sufficient and progressing through the recovery efforts and getting successfully discharged and all of those things, and then moving to a lower level. Maybe that's a step down IOP program or something on an outpatient level. So we do hope to see that level of commitment and progression for them. But it's definitely important that we continue to meet them where they are. Once they're at RISE, provide the necessary structure, safety, any type of oversight that's needed from a psychiatric perspective and also a medical perspective, and then also making sure that we are consistent.
Absolutely. So I know you've already actually broken down a few barriers, I think, even just in the way that you describe RISE. But what are the biggest barriers to our clients before they ever even walk in the doors at one of our clinics or at RISE? What prevents people from seeking services?
I think the biggest barrier is often the fear that they may be feeling. And that fear comes from their very real experiences in life. And it's also fueled by stigma, whether that's something that they themselves have internalized and how they feel about things, or external stigma of how they may feel they'll be perceived by individuals, whether it's their own family members or just society as a whole. But then, how they look at themselves, and if they're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to try this, but what if I fail?" What if you succeed is my question. So we have to make sure that we provide a hopeful experience, and then help to remove any of those barriers, whether they are very real for them or perceived. A lot of the women, as I said, will come with that fear of losing their child or children, the fear of being reported, the fear of losing things that they may have on the outside. So let's say they do not have a way to make sure their housing is secured while they're inpatient. There's that fear of saying, "Oh, I'm going to lose any of my benefits that I may have. I may lose my housing. I don't have any way of being able to maintain this while I'm inpatient." Well, that's where our care management staff come in at. As I said, everything is from an integrated care concept. And so we have care management staff that will work with the women on all of those particular social determinants of health that we are going to make sure that we work through addressing, whether that's housing needs or transportation or childcare. Discharge starts from the point of admission into the treatment center. So they'll continue to be working a plan as long as they're there, that our staff will make sure once we're transitioning them out of services, we've worked through those challenges and we have very real solutions that they can try to pursue once they're discharged.
So then let's say, the stigma is too great and the fear is too great, and an individual decides not to seek treatment. They might consider it, they might think it's not for them, they might be too fearful. What, especially in this situation where women are pregnant, and they're afraid to seek treatment, what happens without treatment?
Without treatment, the cycles continue. There's challenges with, on a state level, us being able to change the outcomes into a more positive direction as it relates to um, maternal health and infant mortality rates being able to change for the better. That particular family unit will continue to not be stabilized. There could still be potential for issues with the development of the children. It just continues a cycle of unfortunate things that will continue to happen for their family. But I'm definitely hopeful that we, as an agency here, as the local governing entity, will continue to work to remove any of those particular barriers, especially as it relates to the stigma, because we know that stigma, it creates silence. We do not want to be silent. We want to make sure that as an agency, we're there to assist. We're there to help uplift the voices of not just the women that come in for treatment for R.I.S E, but all persons within our region that need some form of a treatment, whether it be for a substance use disorder or a mental health diagnosis. We want to make sure that there is a strong societal expectation around being able to seek treatment for whatever your true needs are, and that people have an active role to play in their treatment, in their recovery processes, and that we help to meet that need. We do not want individuals to stay quiet. We want them to come forward and ask for help. So ultimately, we want to remove the stigma associated with the needs of our particular population as best as we can as a local governing entity.
And I see that in our clinics. I think R.I.S E is going to expand that even more, where we'll see hopefully such a shift in that stigma through R.I.S E. So, we've talked about integrated care. We know that the R.I.S E model, and really just the NEDSA model in general, is focused on integrated care. So how does integrated care help us respond differently to these very complex, challenging situations compared to a more traditional treatment model?
Our integrated care model is about treating the whole person so that the whole person can become whole. Traditional systems often separate everything. It's like you got to go over here for mental health, you go over there for substance use, you go way across there for any type of other social services or care management services that you may need. And what that does is place the burden on the individual to navigate it all. And truth be told, while there's an expectation for the individual to navigate all of this thing, they are still at a point where they're likely in a crisis already. And so where we can function in an integrated care setting, it helps to bring everything together. It allows us to really help address all of those particular aspects in a very coordinated way. Because recovery or anything that someone may be struggling with from a mental health perspective, it doesn't just happen in pieces. It happens in the full context of the individual's life. And that's why we as an agency want to continue to operate from an integrated care perspective, not just treating the symptoms, but being able to support transformation, really working with the individual to transform their lives and also the lives of their family unit and the persons that they come in contact with.
Yeah, I think that even just if you look back at our Transformation Thursdays and who we talk to and how we talk about things, it's so much more than treatment. Treatment is obviously a huge part of it, but we know that if you put together a whole person, it's not just going to be that treatment, right? It's going to be their family. It's going to be, some of those social determinants that might not have anything to do with substance use disorder or mental health. So we definitely recognize that, especially when it comes to R.I.S E. So Thank you, Mrs. Rogers, for helping us. I mean, I think this episode really helped us look beyond the numbers, and I hope everyone that was listening really finds like that they're more able to truly understand the people behind those numbers. Today's conversation is a powerful, really reminder that every statistic represents a real person with a story, with challenges and potential for recovery and growth. We continue at Northeast Delta to count down to our June ribbon cutting for RISE. So please be on the lookout for additional information in the coming weeks and months. If you want more information about RISE or any of our other services at Northeast Delta Human Services Authority, please visit our website at nedeltahsa.org, or you can always call us at 800-256-2522. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today and tuning in. Thank you to our wonderful guest, Ms. Janice Rogers. Again, thank you. I'm sure you'll be back, but thank you for joining us again. If you want to stay up to date on all of our programs and events, the best way to do that is to follow the Phoenix on social media through Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. Those handles are NEDelta HSA. All right, everyone. We encourage you now to go be great today, and we will see you next time.